Native Chinese speakers. What are the funniest tattoo fails with Chinese characters you've seen? I once met a girl with a Chinese character tattoo on her neck. She was convinced it said Queen or something similar. Well, not quite. It actually said Dish of the Day. I guess the tattoo artist was inspired by a restaurant menu. Imagine walking around with a tattoo that invites everyone to try the miso soup special. The funniest part? She refused to get it removed. Her reasoning? At least it's original. I also saw a guy at the beach with Gu Xiao dog tattooed on his chest. He thought it symbolized bravery. I asked why he chose dog. He proudly replied, "It means loyalty and strength." Sure, but in China it just means dog. I guess he decided to embody man's best friend. Respect, but still hilarious. What are the most absurd but true facts you know? Sharks are older than trees. Yep, sharks were cruising the oceans 50 million years before trees even thought about showing up. By the time the first forest started growing, sharks were already complaining about these new neighborhoods. If dinosaurs knew their descendants would be running around backyards laying eggs, they'd be shook. Or maybe they'd just start pooping in the grain ahead of time, pure prehistoric pettiness. Koalas have unique fingerprints. So unique that police can mistake them for human prints at crime scenes. Imagine detectives scratching their heads while a koala casually munches on eucalyptus in the background. If you won the lottery, how long did the money last, and what did you spend it on? I won $18,000 and decided it was time to become a legend. I rented a massive billboard in the middle of the city and put up my face with the caption, "Anything is possible. I won, and so can you." A week later, people started recognizing me on the street and asking for autographs. Even though I never told anyone that I blew all the money on the billboard and a burger on my way home. I won $10,000. Like a responsible adult, I paid off my debts first. But then, I bought a 30-foot inflatable dinosaur bounce house. Childhood dream achieved, you know? The neighbors were shocked, the kids were thrilled, and for 3 glorious weeks, I was the hero of the block. Until the local cats decided to pop it. Turns out adults don't need dinosaurs as much as I thought. Guys, what's the most unusual place you've ever stuck your banana? One time at the dacha, I got the idea to test how dense the wood of an old apple tree was. Armed with gloves, I found a crack in the trunk, and let's just say the experiment didn't go as planned. First, the banana got stuck, and there was no way to get it out because the tree practically hugged it. In the end, I had to explain to my grandmother why her favorite apple tree suddenly looked a little embarrassed. Since then, I've steered clear of gardening. Once I decided to try using it as a paintbrush. I grabbed a jar of paint, dipped it in, and started drawing lines on a canvas. Everything was going fine until my neighbor walked into the room and saw the artwork. He asked, "Are you creating a new style of art?" Naturally, I replied, "Yes, this is postmodernism." Now I have a painting that no one wants to buy, but everyone laughs at when they see it. Has anyone ever experienced truly creepy or unusual natural phenomena? Driving through Honduras, light rain falling, I suddenly hear loud thuds on my car roof. Thinking it's hail, I step out and see fish. Actual fish flopping on the ground, from tiny to palm-sized. It felt like a horror movie. Locals just smiled. "Oh, it's Lluvia de Peces, the annual fish rain."
Annual?
They treat it like tradition. I was ready to cancel travel forever. I step out of the shower and freeze. On the mirror is a spider the size of a dinner plate, watching me like it's judging my hygiene. Quietly, I back out and shut the door, pretending it never happened. A local later said, "Oh, that's just a huntsman. Harmless, great for flies."
Harmless?
I'm not living with a spider bouncer. No thanks. Unusual professions. Tell us about your work. I'm a condom tester. Yes, it's a real job. Manufacturers hire people like me to evaluate new materials, sizes, and overall usability. The work is split into 2 parts. Lab tests to check for durability, and field tests. You can guess what that involves. Everything is, of course, anonymous and strictly confidential. The funniest part? People's reactions when I tell them what I do for a living. I'm a water slide tester. My job is to travel the world and ride water slides, testing for speed, comfort, and fun. It sounds like a dream job, and honestly it is. But there are challenges. Sometimes I'm sliding down unfinished wet constructions, or hitting such high speeds that I end up sore for days. Still, admit it, you'd trade places with me for at least a day. Have you ever had a story where one small detail led to big problems? At my friend's wedding, I forgot to silence my phone. Of course, it had to ring right during their vows. And my ringtone? Never gonna give you up. The entire room burst into laughter, while the bride gave me a look that could only mean I was one step closer to eternal banishment. To make matters worse, this moment was forever captured on their wedding video. Lesson learned. Always double-check your phone at formal events. While on vacation, I thought it was safe to leave my backpack with all my documents and cash under a beach chair. An hour later, I returned to find it gone. Passport, stolen. Money, gone. I spent the next 2 days running between the embassy and the police station. Now I never leave the house without a belt bag strapped to me at all times. A small mistake, but an enormous lesson learned. Pathologists, what's the most terrifying thing you've encountered at work? The most haunting case I've ever worked on involved a body found in an old basement. The cold temperature had preserved it almost perfectly, but it looked as though the person had frozen alive. Their face was frozen in an expression of pure terror, and it stayed with me for nights afterward. Later, we discovered they had been deliberately locked inside and had desperately tried to escape. The thought of what they must have experienced in their final moments still chills me to the core. The most deeply unsettling case was that of a young woman brought in after a house fire. I wasn't prepared for how drastically fire can transform a human body. It was so unnatural. It looked more like a melted wax figure than a person. The most horrifying detail: her eyes. They seemed to stare directly at me, as if silently pleading for help. What's the most genius thing you've ever done that turned out to be a total fail? I was absolutely convinced I had come up with the most brilliant way to avoid a parking ticket. I printed a sign that said, "Car broken down, tow truck already called," stuck it to my windshield, and went about my day. When I came back, my car was gone. Turns out a tow truck really was called, but not by me. The fine arrived in the mail along with a bill for the towing service. I guess I overestimated my graphic design skills. Looks like your plan worked a little too well. The tow truck believed your sign too. I found a method on the internet for predicting winning lottery numbers based on the phases of the moon. It sounded legit. I spent 3 hours doing calculations, made an insanely complex chart, and bought 10 tickets. Guess how much I won? 0. No matches. Not even close. The only close call was the cashier saying, "You again? If you're reading this, I'm already gone." A couple of years ago, I met a guy named Jack. We used to bump into each other at the bar after work. He was always the life of the party, laughing the loudest, cracking jokes, lifting everyone's spirits. Then one day he was just gone, and I didn't see him anymore. Recently, while scrolling through social media, I came across a post. "If you're reading this, I'm already gone." It was from Jack. "It doesn't hurt anymore. I was tired of fighting battles you couldn't see. It's not your fault. I was just someone you didn't notice." I read it over and over again. Nobody shared or liked the post for attention. In the comments, familiar names wrote simple words, "I'm sorry we didn't see it." Since then, when someone says, "I'm fine," too quickly, I ask again. Sometimes that's all it takes. Quiet cries for help are the hardest to hear. Pay closer attention to those around you. Sometimes a simple, "I'm here," is enough to save someone. What's the weirdest place you've accidentally walked into? During a workout at the gym, I accidentally walked through the wrong door and found myself in the staff locker room. Inside, a group of instructors was enthusiastically planning some kind of performance. One of them looked at me and said, "Hey boy next door, are you joining us?" I awkwardly pretended to get an urgent phone call and quickly walked out. To this day, I can't help but wonder what kind of show I might have ended up in if I'd stayed. I used to work as a pizza delivery guy, and one time I accidentally went to the wrong address. I walked through an open door carrying the boxes and found myself face to face with a group of people in bizarre costumes. They all had horns and furry tails. It turned out to be a furry meetup. They immediately surrounded me, saying things like, "Don't worry, we don't bite newbies," and even invited me to join in. I calmly set the pizzas on the table and ran out of there like my life depended on it. What's the most surprising thing you've noticed in your pet's behavior? My dog has decided that he's the dominant alpha over the vacuum cleaner. Every time I turn it on, he assumes a battle stance, growls menacingly, and engages in what can only be described as a full-on sparring match with the monster. Once I left the vacuum running and stepped out of the room. When I came back, I found him standing triumphantly with one paw planted firmly on it, like a victorious hunter claiming his prey. Now the vacuum lives safely in the closet, far from his reach. My cat firmly believes he's the smartest creature in the house. One day, I decided to test his cunning by hiding his favorite toy mouse in a drawer. He sat in front of it for a while, staring at me intently, and then he brought me my slipper and dropped it on my foot, as if to say, "Open it or else." It was the most passive-aggressive threat I've ever encountered. Naturally, I caved and gave him the mouse. Now, whenever he wants something, he brings me a slipper. I've officially become the servant of my furry little blackmailer. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.